Chapter 37.1. One of the servants spoke in a dazed voice. The paladins did not immediately understand what he meant. Taken care of? What do you mean? As they looked ahead, an unbelievable sight caught their eyes. Johann, covered in blood, was holding the troll's head in one hand, looking towards them. God has trained my hands for battle and my fingers for war. As one of the clerics absent-mindedly recited a scripture, Valian raised her hand to stop her. Now was not the time for prayers, but for confirmation. It was hard to believe, but if what she saw was correct. The knight had indeed beheaded the troll after severing its arm. Or rather, upon closer inspection, the arm wasn't cut off. It was oddly contoured for a severed limb. Was it possible without fixing the troll and tearing it with a pulley? While the clerics exchanged bewildered looks, a servant spoke up. "We must collect its blood." "My lord." "Ah. Oh. Yes, do that." The knights were not of a status to do such work directly, and the monks were not in a hurry for such tasks. It was the servants who actively engaged in such profit-making. Troll blood was popular among nobles as an alchemical ingredient with magical properties. Given the difficulty of capturing one, the price was justified. Moreover, Johann's concern was the troll's skin. Normally, fire was used when hunting trolls, often burning most of the skin. But this time, a good amount of unburnt skin remained. "Hurry up! Move it! Run! We need to collect that blood, it's worth more than your life." A senior servant scolded the slaves and set out to collect the blood. He poured out the water in his leather pouch onto the ground and hurriedly pressed it against the troll's body. "It won't come out well that way. You need to lift it and place it somewhere else to easily collect the blood." The paladins with experience in troll hunting spoke up. The servant, perplexed, asked, "How do we prop it up?" "Usually, we prop it against a support, but in this case..." Johann, having roughly washed off the blood with water, stood up. He then grabbed the troll's ankles and hoisted it onto his back. Sir, this is not your job to do." "It's fine. This is better than several people struggling." "Where should I place it?" "Oh, over there, on that suitable rock." The clerics looked at Johann in awe for taking the lead in what was usually a servant's job. His humble demeanor, even after hunting a troll, was the epitome of an ideal cleric. Glory only to God. The troll's blood was repulsive and sticky. No matter its value, Johann did not wish to face it directly. He looked curiously at the torches the clerics were holding. "Is this the fire of Saint Aina?" "Yes." "Be careful not to touch it. It's a fire that doesn't extinguish easily." Johann looked at the fire with curiosity. It certainly felt different from ordinary fire. Such a fire would undoubtedly be useful in hunting trolls. Sir Johann. While trying to figure out how to make a torch, the elf knights called out from behind. Johann walked over with an unkind expression. The elf knight, Leon Dial, who was hit hard by a troll, was dying with a pale face. "Sir, I don't think I'll live long." "I see." Johann mixed a little of the blessed water he received from Suitlig into a glass of wine next to him. If it doesn't work, he thought to add more, so he needed to save it. Johann decided not to think about it. Leon Dior, unaware of what Johann was doing, coughed and continued speaking. "I haven't married or had children yet, so I want to pass on my sword, soul, and joy to. Just drink." Johann, tired of dealing with these night dastards, chugged the glass. Leon coughed and drank the wine. "The wine is good, but I have something to say right now. Take a breath. Do you feel better?" Without saying it, it was obvious. Leon's complexion had visibly improved. Leon, who couldn't breathe before, looked bewildered. "Thanks, Suitlignim. Without his help, you wouldn't have survived." Leon and the other knights around him looked moved. They were saddened to see a fellow knight dying, but now, a miracle. Two other elf knights hugged Johann tightly, expressing their gratitude. "Sir, I knew you were an honorable knight, but I didn't know you were so compassionate and noble. Thank you again. I will definitely inform the Count and spread word of your noble actions." After being generously treated by the knights and considering the benefits of having used the water. Seeing the effect of the life water right in front of his eyes, it was hard not to be greedy. "What are you waiting for? Pray, Sir Johann. How can you stand still after seeing this?" Are you blind? As the knight shouted, the subordinates quickly caught on and started praising. While Johann liked the praise, the problem was that they had deserted the battle. Johann spoke indifferently. We should return to the main force soon. Can you walk? Of course. Just need to find my horse again. With a hee-hawing sound, horses began to return to the encampment. Behind them was a giant wolf. Karamov had rounded up the runaway horses. Johann smiled slyly. Chapter 37.2. To name such a smart creature Karamov. Isn't that pitiful? He may be dishonorable and without prestige, but he's still imposing. That's true. To the elf knights, Karamov wasn't a good image. His notorious deeds in the Empire had tarnished his reputation. Of course, to Johann, insults to Karamov meant nothing. In fact, he preferred it. Johann realized something was off. Karamov had brought a person in its mouth. The man was completely disheveled and struggling, but Karamov wouldn't let go. Who did you bring here? Initially, it seemed that he had caught one of the rogue groups. But the clothes of these rogues were too fine. The face and hands were soft, not like those who had roughed it. Let go of me, you wolf cub. What are you doing? Sensing something was off in his words, drew their weapons and aimed them at the man. Startled by the sudden weapons at his throat, the man exclaimed. I am just a traveler, sir. Where are you traveling from and to? I came from Thuringia, heading to Marseille to visit relatives. An elf knight asked. Sir Johann. May I ask? Go ahead. The elf knight drew his dagger and sharply cut the traveler's hand. The traveler screamed sharply. If it's found that you lied, I'll tear your limbs and burn them. Tell me who your relative in Marseille is. The answer was. Elf knights had a convenient mindset that even Johann couldn't dare to follow. The traveler named a few, but the elf knight didn't listen. It seemed he had already made up his mind. The elf knight continued to interrogate with the blade, and finally, the traveler, crying, confessed. I am Baron Ivan's scribe. Baron Ivan sent me here with a troll to help the mercenaries. Johann and the elf knight were both startled by the sudden name. So, it was you who brought the troll to our fiefdom? The knight exclaimed in anger. Trolls had appeared while they were subduing rogue groups. Johann was surprised for a different reason. He had thought they were just chasing a troll in the woods, but this scribe had intentionally orchestrated it. Is a troll a controllable monster? Never heard of that. Me neither. Not usual for an evil wizard. The knights continued to interrogate the scribe. The scribe, in tears and snot, rambled on. He came to support the rogue groups on Baron Ivan's orders, learning how to control a troll for this purpose. He said that by spraying a special potion given by a wizard, the troll wouldn't see him as an enemy, allowing him to control it. And Baron Ivan himself came leading mercenaries. How many? What kind of men did he bring? Empire's Bull mercenary group 105 units. The elf knights' expressions changed drastically. They had thought their force was enough to easily crush a group of rogues, but the story changed with so many additional forces arriving. Furthermore, if mercenaries brought personally by the Baron were involved, they were undoubtedly well-trained heavy infantry. Baron Ivan, a notorious figure as the Emperor's right hand, his presence here means something. It's a direct order from the Emperor himself. What cursed ignorance, not to recognize such honor. How dare they resort to such schemes? The knights of Erland's kingdom were enraged. Even though Marseille City maintained friendly relations with the anti-emperor factions among the Empire's nobility, such blatant maneuvering was unprecedented. Supporting bands of rogues and mercenaries to threaten the city? Had they not realized, they would have shattered the punitive force once again, extorted gold from the city, and then acted innocently back in their own fiefdom. While the knights were furious over this dishonorable scheme, Johann urged them calmly. Return quickly. We shall do so, sir. Why did you act like madmen, creating this situation? I'm sorry, sir. When a troll appears, just retreat and rejoin the main force. Why behave as if it's your sworn enemy? I'd appreciate it if you don't say anything to the others about my mistake, sir. After all jumping in together, what now? Johann naturally scolded the knights. The proud elven knights, unbeknownst to themselves, bowed their heads in submission, a surprising sight not shown in front of the count. Battles among mercenaries often lasted long until one side crumbled and fled. Despite fighting back and forth for hours, Suitl felt uneasy as the enemies held out well. Yet, it was evident that they were slowly being surrounded by a larger force. The fear in the enemies was palpable. In the name of Fort Oxo. Charge! Bulls! Tear the enemies apart! Thus, when hundreds of heavy infantry suddenly emerged from the flanks, even Suitl was bound to be taken aback. Chapter 38.1. Caught off guard by an unexpected attack, the captain of the guards was so astonished that he only stared at the mercenaries pouring in from the side. Suitl, unbelievably vigorous for an old man, shouted in a booming voice. Forward, Crimson Iron Mercenary Company! Advance, St. Galanto Holy Knights Order! It's time to fulfill our contract with the city. Any other mercenaries would have hesitated or even fled in the face of hundreds of elite attackers. But not these. The Crimson Iron Mercenary Company, renowned for its loyal dwarf mercenaries, and the St. Galanto Holy Knights Order, paladins who'd rather die than break their vows, did not hesitate. Those in reserve quickly moved to flank without a moment's hesitation. Fire! At Captain Kumal's command, the dwarfs unleashed their loaded crossbows on the approaching mercenaries. With heavy thuds, mercenaries fell, groaning. Some even tumbled over their shields. The dwarfs' crossbows were far more powerful than the lighter ones carried by the mercenaries. Though harder to reload, the dwarfs had no intention of doing so. Form a shield wall. Hold formation. Do not retreat in the name of Red Iron. Our ancestors watch over us. Praise be to my rock, my fortress, my stronghold. The St. Galanto Holy Knights, murmuring scripture, drank from leather pouches. Their eyes flashed wildly, entering a frenzied state. Suitl recoiled at the sight. Aware of the paladin's ferocity, it was still unsettling to witness. In the name of St. Galanto, charge! The holy water crafted through the St. Galanto Holy Knights Order's mystical vision compelled them to fight relentlessly until death. In this dire situation, Suitl had no choice but to rely on these zealots. He took out a vial and began chanting. O River Ipel, I, a mere mortal who knows your secrets, beseech you. Then, a thick mist began to rise from behind, obscuring everything. The dwarfs and paladins were now hidden. Wizard Nim! You are amazing! The captain of the guard expressed admiration. Such a response to a sudden attack was impressive. The enemies who attempted the surprise attack were fiercely counterattacked by the reserve forces, and the situation became even more confusing for them as the fog rolled in from behind. No matter how elite, there was no one who wouldn't be flustered in such a situation. Doubts about whether they had fallen into a trap. This doubt slowed their steps. Your Excellency Baron, they are stronger than we thought. This isn't what you said. Reinforcements will be arriving soon. Didn't I say I brought a troll? Baron Ivan cursed the scribe. They needed to quickly drive the troll to the opposite flank of the enemy, but what were they doing? It was certain that someone was slacking off somewhere. The battles in this world were extremely uncertain and chaotic. Most things did not go according to plan, and it was almost impossible to communicate if one was just a little apart from others. Still, things almost went as expected. The punitive force that underestimated the rogue gangs went deep in, and now if they are defeated just once, they will collapse on their own. Don't think of retreating, push forward. I will not forgive any tricks. If you back down here, you all will be hanged at the gallows. Upon hearing the Baron's words, the mercenary captain nodded. He too had spoken not with the intention of retreating, but to urge the Baron. A mercenary caught doing rogue activities receives no mercy. They were either sold as slaves or hanged. To return with gold in hand, victory was necessary, even if the opponent was a frenzied paladin or a dwarf. The mercenary captain tightened his helmet strap and shouted. Attack! Reinforcements will come soon. They are exhausted. They will collapse now. So, the Emperor set this up because he was displeased with Marcel City that regularly pays gold to his opposition? Such petty actions. Since he couldn't take the nobles for a proper trial, he either fabricated evidence for assassination or resorted to such underhanded tactics instead of openly attacking the city with soldiers. All this was due to his lack of power. Had the Emperor's power been strong, he wouldn't have resorted to such actions. The Emperor, who ascended to the throne by the votes of the lords, had no power outside his own fiefdom but constantly coveted more. It was natural for the nobles managing their own fiefdoms to resist. The nobles are now uprising against the Emperor's tyranny. That bastard Emperor doesn't deserve the crown. Why yes, you are right. Shut your mouth. You despicable creature. Speak nonsense one more time and I'll tear you apart. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. An elf knight angrily retorted to the scribe who tried to flatter him. He felt like beheading him on the spot. Meanwhile, Johann was reassessing his thoughts. What was the most important thing in this situation? Joining the main force in battle was obvious, but above all, he was of high hostage value as a noble, and the best to trouble the emperor in this affair. Even if the tail is cut off, Baron Ivan, as a well-known limb of the emperor, can't escape blame. Anyone with eyes would recognize him. Sir, give the command. If it's your order, I'll gladly follow. No, just as usual. Right, I can happily follow Sir Johann's command. Please, give your order. Johann was disgusted by the overly friendly elf knights. Honestly, he didn't get along with the elf knights. He would accept gratitude for saving their lives but didn't want to become personally close. Still, the elf knights continued to approach him in a friendly manner. Where are you from in the empire? Do you know any nobles? Have you thought about joining under Count Bartok? How much debt do you owe to the merchants? Thanks to that, Johann let out a sigh of relief when he spotted the battlefield in the distance. Well done, Karamaf. Chapter 38.2. Johann praised the Black Wolf. It was all thanks to Karamaf, whether it was dealing with the troll, gathering the words afterwards, capturing the scribe, and even leading to this battlefield. Are you chewing on troll meat right now? Johann looked around, but it seemed that no one had noticed. It was an amazing feat to have put a piece of meat in his mouth without anyone realizing. Prepare to charge. We'll hit them from behind and break their formation as we go. He had neither the ability nor the intention to issue any complicated commands. The knights in his party were fundamentally stronger in combat than these mercenaries. Charging in and creating chaos was enough. Blow the horns. We charge. Follow Sir Johann. Charge. Charge. For honor. As the knights burst out from behind the forest, the rogue gang was startled. The elite mercenaries from the Empire were still struggling to push back the enemy when suddenly the knights appeared from behind. Fire! From behind, the Saint Aina Holy Knights Order fired arrows. These were fire arrows lit with. The mercenaries screamed as the flames that couldn't be blocked by shields spread. Even before the cavalry could crash into their formation, the enemy mercenaries were already scattering with screams. Without proper preparation, and especially from a surprise attack from the rear, no one could withstand. And such mercenaries became easy prey. Johann swung his spear with a cold expression, piercing the throat of a fleeing mercenary, then grabbed a mace with his other hand to strike the opposite side. Eschit, die! A fallen mercenary tried to stab Johann's horse in a fit of desperation, but an elf knight quickly rushed over and crushed his head with a horse's hoof. How dare you challenge us, you lowly scum! Hey! Properly assist Sir Johann. I'm sorry, my lord. The elf knight's subordinate hurriedly ran over and joined Johann's side. Johann, disgusted, charged forward even more. As Johann sensed the end, so did Baron Ivan, and the captain of the bull mercenary group felt the end was near. The mercenaries and rogues, who were supposed to hold their ground, crumbled like this, indicating they too couldn't hold out for long. Those damned sons of bitches. After all the gold I've scattered. Baron Ivan cursed the mercenaries with eyes bulging in excitement. He had spent so much to bribe the Oak Tree mercenary group and to make them fight valiantly. But they couldn't withstand and were shattered like this. However, to the mercenary captain, this was an inevitable outcome. Who could withstand when knights were charging from behind? Get ready to run. The mercenary captain whispered to his senior mercenaries and lieutenants. The bull mercenary group was about to collapse. They had to escape before that happened. What are you planning to do? We must escape. Escape? How will you handle the aftermath? It's already too late. Even if we bring 10 trolls, those guys won't regroup. Don't talk nonsense. You've taken the money, do your job. Do you think you'll be safe after this? Escort His Excellency. We're escaping. The mercenary captain had no intention to argue with the Baron. The mercenaries quickly grabbed the Baron and started retreating from the battlefield. Their subordinates fighting fiercely up front had no idea about the captain's actions. Yes, I saw it too. After crushing the chest of a fleeing mercenary, Johann narrowed his eyes. Amidst the chaos, he noticed figures starting to retreat in the distance. It looked very suspicious. Karamaf. Follow them. Let's go. Sir Johann. I'll help. Let's go together. Although Johann couldn't understand exactly what Karamaf said, it felt like he said something like, the escorting mercenaries retreated from the battlefield and tried to mount their horses. But before they could, they spotted pursuers in the distance. There are pursuers. Who is it? Damn, it's a knight. The mercenaries looked at each other. Running away from a lost fight was something every mercenary experienced. Now, the thing was, the pursuer was supposed to be slowed down. Damn! A few unlucky ones were left behind, and the Baron and the mercenaries started their escape. Those who remained gritted their teeth and held their weapons. Even if it was a knight, if they could just hold out and knock him off the horse. Johann didn't stop and wielded his mace. Seeing the mercenaries with shields, his intention was clear. With a dull sound, the mercenaries collapsed. The ones who took the mace on their shields couldn't stand up due to the impact. For the mercenaries trying to flee from behind, this was an unbelievable situation. Who taught these assholes to use shields? Chapter 39.1. Not just any greenhorn, but how does it make sense to fall after shielding from a blow on horseback? Of course, for the mercenaries who fell after being hit, it was an unjust tale. They had clearly blocked it properly, yet their bones were crushed and the impact penetrated down. Karamaf. Block their front. What? What Karamaf? The mercenaries were startled by the sudden name. Sir Karamaf, once renowned as the Emperor's great warrior and then suddenly disappeared, became the talk of many gossips. Some whispered that the cunning Emperor had secretly taken him away for another plot. Why would such a knight appear here? Soon, they would discover who this name referred to. Damn these wolf bastards! Karamaf, after swiftly running through the bushes, burst out in front of the path, threatening the horses. The horses, startled by Karamaf's murderous howling, reared up and halted. It's just two of them. What are you doing? Capture and move on. As Baron Einbeck shouted, the mercenaries frowned. They were annoyed by this noble who kept nagging, even though he wasn't the one fighting. When they were well-fed and safe, they kept quiet because of the power behind the Baron, but if things got tough, being a noble or even a noble's father meant nothing. However, the Baron's power was still effective. Once they escaped here, he would be a solid source of money in the Empire. Definitely just two of them. Maybe we should capture and go. Damn! I knew we should have captured them earlier. The mercenaries grumbled and prepared to fight. They were reluctant to battle a knight on horseback. Although they were veterans who had roamed battlefields for over 10 years, fighting knights was a different story. How dare these filthy maggots! An elf knight from the Balaam family was furious that the mercenaries did not flee but chose to confront them. Already enraged by the humiliation suffered from trolls, his killing intent exploded. That exploded killing intent burst out in a refined martial art. The elf knight, charging forward on his horse in one stride, stabbed through the enemy's armor with his lance, dismounting him, and then drew his long sword, sending another's helmet flying. Despite being hit on the helmet, blood gushed like a fountain. Come at me again, you maggots! The elf knight fiercely shouted, swinging his lance again, sending another mercenary flying. The knight, who had been evading trolls, was now a slaughterer among the mercenaries. Johann admired this sight. Johann joined in right away. The mercenary, who earlier mocked his colleague for poor shielding, now understood physically why his fellows had fallen. As he was lightly struck by a mace on horseback, his body crumbled with a groan. Karamaf! You must not eat that one. Karamaf was already crushing Baron Ivan under him. Baron Ivan was babbling something. I am a high noble of the Empire, Baron Ivan. I beg for mercy. What shamelessness for one who turned mercenaries into rogue bands to wag his tongue so freely. It was customary among nobles to demand ransoms from each other when captured, but this was only a custom, not a hard rule. When tempers flared, such conventions were quickly forgotten. Moreover, this was not a formal battle, but an incident where an Empire noble had secretly hired a mercenary band to engage in rogue activities and got caught. It was natural for the elf knight to be enraged and want to kill them. Johann stopped the elf knight. Sir, honor must be upheld. Even if Baron Ivan caused trouble with a troll, a ransom was still a ransom. Johann had no intention of losing money. At these words, the elf knight showed a look of admiration. You are right, sir. I learn again from you. The virtue of a knight is honor. O water, O water. One of the fallen mercenaries gasped for breath. The elf knight responded with his spear. The struggling mercenary breathed his last. To almost forget that a knight's virtue is honor. I believe meeting a knight like you in this insignificant city of merchants is surely divine guidance. That makes sense. Suetg sighed in relief, seemingly having won the battle. As Suetg staggered, Geoffrey supported him and asked, Wizard Nim, are you all right? Do I look all right? Handling too many secrets had backfired on his body. Handling the secrets of nature in a mortal body was no ordinary task. Blinded, Suetg fumbled for his staff. You were truly magnificent. I never knew the power of magic could be so great. Looks like the knights charged in. Is your master also here? Yes. Seems like they caught the troll safely. HMPH. Suetg looked pleased. Catching the troll with his poison was also divine providence. The battlefield was smoothly cleared. The victorious troops butchered the fleeing enemies and, once they had some breathing room, captured the escapees. Some mercenary groups, after getting permission, sent their swift soldiers to reap substantial profits. From equipment to slaves, everything became their property. Wizard Nim, you really did a great job. This expedition would have been really tough without you. If you have the leisure to praise me, better to extol the knights. Suetg scolded the captain of the guard. If the knights who fought the troll heard praise for the wizard, who knew what they might do out of jealousy? In fact, their mood was likely already sour for not receiving proper support in fighting the troll. Philosopher, thanks to you, my friend's life was saved. Today, I felt that the title the Philosopher of the Ipel River is no empty name. Thank you, Suetg Nim. I will surely tell Count Bartok. But the reaction of the returning knights was strange. They weren't complaining about not receiving support against the troll, nor were they demanding their share of the spoils. Gratitude! Suetg was shocked, never having seen knights express gratitude before. If it weren't for the elixir of life you gave us, my friend would have. Suetg became serious, realizing what had happened at that moment. Even feeding it to street pigs would have been less wasteful. Chapter 39.2. Upon hearing the report from Johann and the knights, the captain blinked repeatedly. Suetg, standing beside him, also displayed a look of disbelief. What did you catch the troll with? Ah, no. Wizard Nim. That's not the main issue right now. Didn't you say Baron Einbeck was behind it? We need to return to the city quickly and report this. Ah, right. So, how did you catch the troll? The captain was indeed curious about how the troll was captured, but as a commander, his sense of responsibility prevailed. He patiently organized the situation related to Baron Einbeck. It was necessary to report to the magistrate immediately. Seems the Emperor is in a tight spot. How do you think Marcel will react? Well, in the city, there are both pro-Emperor and anti-Emperor factions. Now that they've been caught red-handed, the pro-Emperor faction won't have a choice but to keep quiet. The decision will come from the council, and depending on their leniency, it could either be exile or a more severe punishment. Suetg made a throat-slitting gesture, hoping that those aligned with the Emperor in the city wouldn't cause trouble in this situation. But about the troll, who tore it apart? Suetg wouldn't have believed it had he not heard it directly from the Elven Knights and the monastery members. The Elven Knights were excitedly recounting how Baron Einbeck's involvement was not the main concern, but how Johann tore the troll apart. The knights were simple-minded. They disregarded those beneath them but were generous to their equals, let alone to a knight more formidable than themselves. Johann had clearly overwhelmed the knights with his skills. Yes, somehow. Good. Becoming famous as a troll slayer, cutting off the troll with a single blow. Brute strength isn't something to be praised in a bard song. Anyway, be careful for a while. Sudden fame always brings trouble. But no need to worry about that now. Just relax and enjoy for the time being. The city won't let this matter end just like that. Now that the rogue band had been revealed as sponsored by the Emperor, Marcel would surely elevate the expedition and demean the Emperor. And such glorious praise was always fitting for a knight. The elves will be pleased. Right. Speaking of which, you gave that water I gave you. Why use it on someone? Ah. Wizard Nim, how can you not save face? You now have connections with Count Bartok, don't you? Damn grateful for that. Suitl couldn't refute Johan's words. Saving Count Bartok's knight was indeed a good deed. Considering the Count's reputation, this act would surely bring appropriate rewards. However, that was one thing, and the annoyance with the Elven Knights was another. Since it was used for a good cause, could you please refill the water? I'll think about it. The triumphal ceremony to honor those returning victorious from war has been a tradition since ancient times. Although not as extravagant as during the Empire era, the triumphant return of the punitive force was enough to captivate the attention of the city's populace. It had an atmosphere akin to a festival. Praise the honorable knights. These are the knights who contributed most significantly to the punitive expedition. The knights were at the forefront, while at the end, mercenaries captured in the expedition were brought in. The citizens jeered, hurling stones and rotten objects at the mercenaries. Agitators positioned throughout loudly proclaimed the knights' achievements and the reasons why the rogue band had plundered near the city. This was done to elevate the knights and simultaneously incite hatred against the emperor. While there was disdain for the emperor, people were astonished by the previously unheard name of Johann. The tale of a new knight's exploits was fresh and intriguing. He beheaded a troll all by himself, can you believe that? What are you talking about? He's a Sir Knight. Obviously, he's different from the likes of us. Even for a Sir Knight, capturing a troll all by himself. You doubt too much. The Sir Knights nearby must have helped. Anyway, capturing it is impressive, yes. Well, that's true. Though interpreted differently by the naive and the cunning, everyone agreed on one thing. Regardless of the help received or how it was done, capturing a troll was a remarkable feat. Already, the nickname Troll Slayer was circulating among the people. After today, Johann would be referred to as Marcel's Troll Slayer. Chapter 40. The Elf Knights Adept rode their horses, responding arrogantly to the cheers. They took these acclamations and celebrations for granted and considered them a source of pride. These knights were fundamentally different from Johann, who was calculating in his head how much profit he had made from this expedition. Basic allowance, plus for being active, plus for distinction in battle, and of course, extra for the troll's body, which is quite valuable, and the ransom for Baron Einbeck quite a haul. The profit was so substantial that Johann couldn't help but smile. Meanwhile, the Elf Knights were receiving gifts from the noble women and praising Johann. If it weren't for this honorable knight here, I would have surely perished. Oh. Right. A round of applause for the knight who knows honor. The praise he duly deserves. The Elf Knights firmly impressed Johann's name upon the city nobles. It was different from just hearing about it through a captain's report. Publicly praising him in such a setting had a different impact. With this, Johann was no longer seen as a knight who had just lucked into a feat coming from the Empire, but as a knight of skill and honor, endorsed by other knights. The expedition turned out to be an overly profitable venture. Was it something you aimed for? Yes? Just curious. About you saving the Elf Knights. After the victory parade, they rested at the mansion. While Johann was full of energy, Suitl was weak from the effects of magic. Geoffrey, Johann's slave, seemed to attend more to Suitl. But why don't the wizard's slaves do anything? Geoffrey didn't know that the slaves were too afraid of the wizard to lay a hand on him. Had he known the full story, he would never have dared to intervene. Those arrogant elves were completely smitten. Even a girl in love wouldn't act like that. Who thinks about that, Your Excellency? I just did it because I had to, considering what I've received. If you didn't do it with an ulterior motive, that's impressive in itself. Wait. Is that perfume oil? What do you plan to use it for? I'll give it to Ibelka. Who is Ibelka? The maid who serves me. Suitl was taken aback by Johann's words. You're not misunderstanding something, are you, Your Excellency? That maid probably had a lover before you came and will find a new one soon after you leave. She's different from a lady. Young men often mistakenly believe that once they've had intimate relations, the other person becomes theirs. But with someone who isn't serious, such a mistake would only lead to embarrassment. Moreover, a knight rising in honor had nothing to gain from a love feud over a maid. I know that, but... Don't you know? Then why give the gift? Suitl, sir, do you think gifts are only given in deep relationships? You can just give them. And Ibelka has been very helpful in many ways. That help wouldn't happen to be of a certain, intimate nature, would it? What nonsense. I was talking about the rumors of the city. After all, I haven't been in this city for long. Ibelka has many connections, so it's easy to hear various rumors. Of course, as a maid affiliated with a trading company, there is a need to be discreet, but being treated nicely like this does make one's lips a bit looser, doesn't it? Suitlug was truly surprised by Johan's words. He thought Johan was just a young, hot-blooded knight, but his way of thinking, Your Excellency, seemed like that of a seasoned noble. It was rare among knights to think like this, Your Excellency. Usually, if one focuses solely on knightly training in a castle from a young age, their mindset tends to become rigid in that direction. Were you playing around with such thoughts from the beginning? Playing around? Someone might misunderstand with such words. It's just a byproduct of doing something else. Giving a gift isn't harmful, after all. You always manage to surprise me. I'm not usually someone who gets surprised so often. Have you heard of the saying about the courage of a lion and the cunning of a fox? What is that? It's a virtue a king should have. Being brave yet cunning. It's rare to find someone possessing both qualities. Most knights usually have the former. That's certainly true. But you seem to have a talent for both. I'm not cunning, though. No, you definitely have the talent. Although it was a compliment, it oddly felt like an insult. Johan nodded with a bittersweet expression. You'll do well even at the banquet hosted by the magistrate. I was a bit worried, actually. I've looked into it, and it doesn't seem to be a situation to be too concerned about, right? At an event where even mercenary captains and monks are invited, you don't have to worry much about formalities. Minor mistakes won't matter. However, you should be cautious for other reasons. A young, talented knight with a weak background who has recently accomplished a feat who wouldn't be tempted. Johan was suddenly alert at Suitlug's words. Indeed, it was a valid point. Johan's position was still unstable, making him an easy target for exploitation. It would be fortunate if they regard you highly and make an offer, but such good fortune is rare in this world, especially among city nobles. Be very alert, and think deeply, Your Excellency, about any offers you receive. I'll keep that in mind. I was already digging into some people to watch out for in Ibelka, but I'll have to inquire more deeply. I guess I didn't need to say it after all. Strictly speaking, the city nobility were not actually nobles. Those in power in the city could have been wealthy commoners, guild leaders, or even mercenary captains who had earned military glory. However, in cities without a feudal lord, these individuals behaved like nobles and essentially received the same treatment as nobles. The magistrate and the city council were central figures among these city nobles and also ruled the city. Although they were democratically elected, in reality, it was a system driven by money and power. Therefore, the magistrate and his family could be considered equivalent to a feudal lord and his family in the city. Dark elves, are they also from a noble family? Observing a middle-aged dark elf man, Johan thought to himself. The lineage of elves and dark elves itself signified nobility in Erlands. Even without a fiefdom or title, they were treated as prestigious bloodlines. Unlike human nobles of the empire like Johan, who had to prove themselves through accent and demeanor, it was much easier and straightforward for the elves. No wonder elves were genuinely treated as blue-blooded. I offer my thanks for the conquest, and I dedicate this glory to the gods. Thanks be to the gods. The banquet was definitely informal and comfortable. Even the mercenary captains who had performed special feats were seated at the end of the long table, obviously delighted and proud to be invited to such an event. Johan reaffirmed his resolve as he reflected on the status of those seated around him. Come on, it's a happy occasion. Aren't you drinking too little? Here, drink freely. An elf knight from the Bellmen family generously filled Johann's glass with wine. The most relaxed individuals at this event were probably these elf knights. Having completed the conquest, now all that was left was to return to the count and receive praise. Still, having these individuals seated next to him made it easier for an outsider like Johan to chat freely. There was also an unexpected benefit. Sir Johan, I've heard about your troll hunt. To achieve such a feat at your age is truly remarkable. There's a noble I'm deeply indebted to whose fiefdom is plagued by a cockatrice. What do you say? Are you interested in adding another illustrious achievement to your already shining honor? If you want to catch a cockatrice, you should call insane paladins or hunters. That's not a task for a noble knight. How disrespectful to suggest such a filthy and troublesome task to Sir Johann. The elf knights loudly clinked their glasses, causing wine to splash out. They were clearly tipsy, and in this city they lacked nothing and spoke boldly, regardless of whether the other party was a city noble or someone else. From Johann's perspective, this was frankly refreshing. No, it was just a suggestion. I thought Sir Johann might be interested. Interested? Do you think we don't know how tedious and disgusting it is to catch a cockatrice? What do you take a knight's honor for? Always these people cooped up in their rooms, fiddling with jewels. The person who brought up the topic blushed and backed away. After such incidents occurred a few times, no one dared to make any more frivolous suggestions. Sir Johann. I speak of this because my nephew is of the right age and truly a good child. I think he might be suitable for you. How many nephews do you have, Lord Morans? Didn't you just send off one to marriage recently? Did her husband pass away since, or did you adopt a new daughter-in-law? No, this is a matter that needs clarity. Unless the girl comes from a decent background, surely you wouldn't have picked up a street orphan and dressed her up, right? I remember hearing something about this. These crazy fools. It seemed the elf knights had drunk enough wine to lose all restraint, hurling insults without a second thought. Johann, indifferent, watched as those insulted turned red-faced and cursed the knights. They were truly reckless, not from this city. Indeed, the offers I received today were all quite peculiar. As Johann drank, he pondered over the proposals of the day. Most were attempts to exploit his abilities for a cheap deal. Compared to these offers, the contract with the trading company felt generous. Fame was important, but not enough. Without a solid background, one was prone to be swarmed by wild dogs like this. Sir Johann? Your Excellency wishes to see you in private. Thus, the proposal at the end of the banquet took Johann by surprise. Magistrate Villico, a solitary and inscrutable man, perhaps more so for being a dark elf. Do you know why you have been summoned alone, sir? Johann was intrigued by the magistrate's direct approach, usually starting with formalities. You called me here to ask something that can't be discussed in the presence of others, didn't you? What do you think that might be, Your Excellency? Is it about the Emperor? The magistrate beamed with pleasure at Johann's guess. Exactly. So, will you stand with the Emperor, or against him? I am under the banner of the trading company and will follow their will. Don't be ridiculous, sir. Why would someone bite the hand that feeds them? No knight thinks of spending a lifetime with a trading company. It's just a matter of convenience. Are you dissatisfied with my allegiance to the trading company? Look, sir. While the Kartana Merchant Guild is a strong part of the city, honestly, if the Emperor offers more, they would side with him. I don't trust such people easily. Chapter 41. The base of the guilds was in the city-states of the Catalian Peninsula, not in Marseille. For the guilds rooted in Marseille and the magistrate, the guilds were an entity hard to trust completely. But the case with the knight is different. Now, please tell me. Cardirian is not a good emperor, is he? Upon hearing Johann's words, the magistrate grinned triumphantly. Is that so? Did you call me to ask which side I'm on? Ah. Of course not. The main point starts now. You have captured Baron Einbeck, and the right is yours. The knight sent by Count Bartok also said so. It was Johann who had captured Baron Einbeck, so the ransom for this hostage was also rightfully Johann's. Do you plan to hand over Baron Einbeck to another noble? Instead of releasing Baron Einbeck for a ransom from the Einbeck family, handing him over to a third noble for money? Certainly, this would have been a difficult task for nobles related to the Emperor or the Emperor himself. It was like throwing dirt on the face of the Einbeck family. Of course, Johann was not at all concerned. If the price is right. Of course, we will offer you a generous price. Are you really okay with this? Yes. But I'm curious. Who wants to take Baron Einbeck? I cannot tell you yet. I will inform you once it's decided. Is it a noble of the Empire? You are quick-witted. Instead, I will tell you something else. When the sun rises tomorrow, all Empire people in Marseille City, especially those related to the Emperor, will be expelled. Johann was surprised by the magistrate's words. Although what the Emperor did was indeed unethical, he didn't expect such a strong reaction. Is that allowed? Cardirian refused to explain or compensate and insulted our diplomats. It's a challenge to us, so there's no reason to tolerate anymore. Aren't there pro-emperor factions in the Disaster Relief Council? They will be gone from tomorrow. Johann felt a chill for a moment. Sir, I was honestly surprised by your power. When the guilds mobilized you, I wondered what their intentions were. I understand, being a foreign knight who drifted here. But as things become more chaotic around us, a knight like you will become more valuable. As a magistrate, I look forward to your achievements. And don't think that only the guilds can be your backing. The magistrate smiled meaningfully. The conversation with the magistrate was beneficial but also burdensome. It was clear what the magistrate wanted. When the interests of the trading company and the magistrate diverged, then come under the magistrate's seal instead of the company's flag. Considering the magistrate's status, it was an undeniably good offer. From Johann's perspective, who neither knew the magistrate's thoughts nor plans, it was inevitably suspicious. In contrast, the trading company was straightforward. Give and take. Suitlg wasn't wrong when he said the company was easy to understand. Not just fame or power, but trust was also one of Johann's valued principles. It was because many ignored this. While pondering, Johann handled his tasks in order. He took care of the silver and gold from subjugation and merits, some of which he distributed to mercenaries and donated to the monastery, and decided to sell the troll's skin and blood to Marcel. The magistrate, naturally, Marcel wanted to buy those precious ingredients. If Johann's family had not been gone, they might have even hauled them by the cartload. Meanwhile, the elf knights finished their work in the city and prepared to leave. They hugged Johann, telling him to send a messenger if he was ever nearby. As busy as Johann was, the city was equally bustling. As the magistrate said, edicts of exile, executions, and property seizures burst forth everywhere. It was such a measure that people wondered if the emperor's army was invading. Yet, people didn't worry seriously. They had that much trust in the city. Even if it was the emperor, it wasn't easy to lead an army from afar and conquer this city. Are you feeling rested, sir? Yaron, who ran the trading company's branch, seemed more respectful than before for some reason. Yes. The reason I called you today is that there's a proposal that's difficult for me to decide. The frivolous proposals Johann received at the banquet also reached Yaron. They were letters from various places, but the contents were roughly similar. They praised a knight who had just started gaining fame and asked him to hunt monsters near their territories. Monster hunting was a rare poison for young knights. One could easily gain fame, but intoxicated with it, they often ended up with nothing. If they continued to win, maybe, but a severe injury could leave them with nothing in the end. However, among these proposals, some were worthwhile. 2 proposals were such. Count Bartok and Count Jarpen wish to meet you, sir. Johann couldn't help but be surprised when suddenly told that 2 counts wanted to meet him. Do I have to choose between the 2? Yes. If you go to meet one, the other will surely hear about it, as neither of them is a fool. From the count's perspective, Johann was merely a knight who had gained a little fame. It was rare for a count to view favorably a knight who rejected his offer. Choosing one side meant it would be difficult to meet the other again. It would be best for you to make a decision quickly and assemble a party to depart the fiefdom. There's nothing good in delay in this situation. When dealing with those of higher status, one had to be extra cautious. There was always a chance of being faulted for some reason. From the company's perspective, well, whoever it may be, they are people of high repute, so I think it will be a good opportunity. And sir, has the magistrate made any proposal? A proposal? I'm not sure what you mean. Johann kept his face unchanged, feigning ignorance, but Yaron looked already convinced. The magistrate always likes to not trust others and create his own people. Our company has no intention of betraying Marcel City, yet he made the offer. You're free to accept the magistrate's offer, but just know one thing. Unlike our contract, once you accept a deal with the magistrate, it's hard to get out of it. Anyway, we'll wait for your decision. Yaron, like a seasoned merchant, did not rush the response, said what he had to, and gracefully retreated. They probably want to use you as an escort, a young knight of skill and status. You know that the city's guards and the captain of the guards are originally mercenaries, right? I am aware. The mercenaries fought well but lacked loyalty. Knowing this, the city employed various methods to appease them. They provided the mercenaries with homes and families, gave the mercenary captains positions, and continuously mixed mercenaries to maintain control. Carrot and stick. Mercenaries were tricky beings to deal with, neither too little nor too much. In contrast, Johann was a noble-born knight. A much more reliable entity. They must want to use you like that. It's not a bad offer, but the timing is off. Looking at Marcel's atmosphere, there's a strong scent of war. Accepting the offer now means you'll have to fight bloodily in someone else's war. Who would they be fighting against? I don't know that. But if we do fight, it'll probably be against the Empire, maybe a fiefdom related to the Emperor. The city wouldn't stay idle after such an incident. Johann suddenly remembered what the magistrate had said. Could the one wanting to buy Baron Einbeck be a feudal lord within the Holy Empire? Selling the Baron and borrowing an army would definitely be a worthwhile venture, especially to start a war. Participating in the war was one thing, but joining as a subordinate of the magistrate was another. The difference in rewards received would be too great. In my opinion, what you should be worrying about right now is not that. You can honestly put aside the merchant guild or the magistrate for now. Choosing one side won't make the other hold a grudge against you. But an invitation from the Count is a different story. Do you have any advice to offer? Don't go to Count Bartok. Why not? Johann asked, seemingly bewildered by Suetlug's abrupt statement. Because Count Bartok is a miser. His spending is miserly. Johann recalled seeing the elf knights indulging lavishly in food and luxury. It seemed odd that a count who allowed such extravagance could be a miser. I'm not talking about his spending. He spends lavishly because he has a reputation to maintain. But he won't easily grant fiefs. Haven't you seen those knights? None of them received a fiefdom. Count Bartok, though generous in spending for his own luxury and pride, was stingy in holding investiture ceremonies and granting fiefdoms to his subordinates. It's quite obvious. He will invite you, make you compete in a few contests, praise you, and then hold an investiture ceremony. But after that, he won't grant you a fiefdom. Then what about Count Jarpen? Count Jarpen is. Suetlug trailed off. The Count is? I don't know much about him. Seeing Johann's expression, Suetlug quickly made an excuse. I haven't met all the nobles. Especially someone like Count Jarpen, who doesn't seek wizards, there's even less chance of meeting. When I was passing through, it seemed like there was a war going on. Oh, that's fortunate. Were they losing? I'm not sure, but I think I heard they were at a disadvantage. Even better. Such desperation might mean you'll be treated well. Johann chuckled at Suetlug's words. It sounded like a joke, but it made sense. So, inviting me would mean they're looking for a useful mercenary. Does that bother you? Not really. I thought it could be possible. You're quite an unusual person. Sometimes I think you have a broad perspective, and other times, it seems quite narrow. I'll take that as a compliment. Thanks to the conversation with Suetlug, Johann felt his thoughts becoming clearer. Indeed, it seemed right for Johann to go to a noble who needed him, rather than one who didn't. If Count Jarpen is desperate, he will likely make a substantial offer. Chapter 42. When told to go to Count Jarpen, Yaron nodded his head as if it was a good choice. You have made a good choice. Speak to Count Bartok as politely as possible and prepare to leave immediately. Will you be hiring any mercenaries separately? Johann realized a practical problem upon hearing Yaron's words. While the elf knights had servants and slaves in Count Bartok's fiefdom, Johann only had a single slave and a wolf. It was not only a matter of dignity but also of real danger. As they approached Count Jarpen's territory, the number of mercenaries and rogues would increase. To avoid unnecessary fights, it was better to present a formidable appearance. Would it be possible for you to recommend some decent mercenaries at the guild? Yes, that would be wise. Yaron nodded with a smile. In such matters, having connections was certainly convenient. Traveling with more than 20 mercenaries cost Johann for Empire silver coins a day. Though it was a bargain compared to a knight's cost, it was still a significant expense. It was fortunate he received a substantial amount of silver coins from this campaign. Otherwise, he would have had to join as a member of a merchant caravan. Fortunately, the mercenaries introduced by the guild were generally trustworthy, unlike the riffraff picked up from the streets. There was no need for unnecessary rivalry or power struggles. And that Sir Knight is a troll slayer. He doesn't look like it, does he? What did you expect him to look like? I don't know. Twice his size, maybe. Most importantly, no crazy mercenary dared to challenge Johann's authority so soon after the campaign. Experienced mercenaries knew better than to risk their lives unnecessarily. "My lord, wouldn't it be better to buy more slaves?" I am considering it." Geoffrey's suggestion made sense. If he had the money, it would be better to travel with slaves or servants rather than mercenaries. They were more reliable. The problem was, Johann, who unexpectedly came into a large sum of money due to his achievements, was reluctant to buy battle slaves and form a troop indiscriminately. "By the way, Geoffrey, you seem to be in a good mood. Isn't it because of the nice weather?" Geoffrey looked very pleased. The reason was simple. With no Suitk, no slaves of Suitk, and no servants from the guild, Geoffrey was determined to score points and be as indispensable to Johann as a tongue in a mouth. Even if other slaves joined, to secure his position as a trusted senior and to avoid hard labor, Geoffrey was resolved to give his best effort. The road to Count Jarpen's territory was the reverse of the route they had taken to the city. Although it was the same path they had traveled before, the atmosphere felt markedly different on the return journey. "Sir Knight, something seems amiss." Mercenaries who had gone into a nearby town to procure provisions reported back to Johann with serious expressions. When Johann had escaped, Count Jarpen's territory was in the midst of war, but the conflict hadn't reached as far as Rutsbeck. However, now it seemed that the effects of the battle had spread to the south. Not only Rutsbeck but other towns as well were in a state of high alert, on edge. "Is it that bad?" "Yes. We need to be more cautious going forward." The opponent in the war with Count Jarpen was Countess Abner, a powerful count from a royal court background. Though Count Jarpen was a legitimate empire count, he seemed to be outmatched in power. The conflict between these two feudal lords in the southwest of the empire had garnered the attention of everyone from other lords of the Erland's kingdom to the merchant guilds of southern city-states, indicating its prolonged nature. In this era, wars were more akin to conflicts between fiefdoms rather than between nations. The lords within a country were almost like rulers of small states. And if such a war drags on, "My lord, maybe we should consider returning." Geoffrey, a former merchant, cautiously suggested this, knowing well the dangers of traversing areas where fiefdom conflicts are prolonged. Pillaging. In a world without systematic supplies, armies relied on purchasing from camp-following merchants, and when that failed, they resorted to looting. While mercenaries might take cues from their feudal lords, that was only feasible when circumstances allowed. There were no mercenaries who would hold back when faced with immediate hunger and survival needs. Do you think so? Frankly, under these circumstances, Count Jarpen should have sent an escort procession. That's the custom. Their failure to do so indicates a dire situation, then. Under normal circumstances, inviting someone in such chaotic times would require the host to demonstrate their status by sending an escort procession. However, Count Jarpen did not, or perhaps could not, do so. There was no point in visiting if the situation was so dire that the other party had nothing to offer. Johann regretted not choosing to visit the more prosperous Count Bartok of the Erland's kingdom instead. But the decision had been made, and the letters had been sent. Retreating now would only result in a loss for Johann. But we won't turn back. Having said we'd visit, we must. A knight's honor was crucial in such matters. Retreating after committing to a visit would diminish Johann's reputation. Geoffrey nodded in understanding. A slave's role was limited to giving advice, thereafter, they must follow their master's commands. The worries proved to be right. A group of about 40 mercenaries blocked the way. Although they had encountered mercenary groups before, those groups had retreated, seemingly daunted by Johann and his party. But these mercenaries were different. A desire to risk danger for a big gain gleamed in their faces and eyes. "Halt! We are mercenaries governing this area under the sacred orders of Countess Abner. In the name of the Countess, we will levy a toll. Surrender your belongings and weapons. Do you have a stamp permit?" "Ha! As if we carry such things all the time. Look at this flag. This alone suffices as proof." The mercenaries pointed to their flag, but Johann's mercenaries whispered quietly. It was unclear whether they were directly under Countess Abner or deserters. Even if they were contracted by Countess Abner, there was no reason to tolerate such plundering. "I am Johann of the Yates family. The warriors behind me are mercenaries hired in the name of Marcel's Cartana Merchant Guild. Even Countess Abner cannot sanction such levies. Are you defying the Countess's orders?" Some mercenaries armed with crossbows raised their weapons threateningly. Johann growled in a low voice. Karamaf! The enemies wondered what Johann meant. But by the time they realized, a giant wolf was already pouncing from the side. Kill those with crossbows first, Karamaf! Johann shouted fiercely, brandishing a newly forged spear. The tip of the spear shone sharply. The first to fall was the one who had insolently spoken to Johann. Before he could move, Johann's spear pierced through him, easily penetrating his steel-plated armor. Such a mad night. Before they could finish, Johann had already reached the mercenaries. The imposing knight on horseback, with his arms raised, instilled such terror that some mercenaries wet themselves. And then the slaughter began. Like a wolf massacring a flock of sheep, Johann rampaged through the mercenaries with a mace and long sword. Each flash of the sword brought sprays of blood, and every dull thud meant another head shattered. In the blink of an eye, 7 or 8 men lay dead. The mercenaries, panicked by the collapse of their formation, hastily retreated. For Johann, it was as if they were begging to be killed. To stop a knight on horseback, they had to stick close and attack the horse. Charge! Support, Sir Knight! The mercenaries, initially stunned by Johann's fierce attack, hurriedly joined the battle. Arrows flew, and with shouts, clashes ensued. The battle was easy, almost disorienting, thanks to Johann's frenzied frontline assault. They only had to attack the retreating mercenaries from behind. Johann felt a chilling sensation and jerked his head back. A bolt had just whooshed past where his face had been moments ago. One of the mercenaries fleeing behind him must have loaded his crossbow. The mercenary was immediately punished. Karamaf leaped up and tore the mercenary apart. For Johann, long-range attacks like these were more threatening than the assaults from the knights. Thanks to Karamaf, Johann could focus on the battle with ease. Catch those fleeing! Don't let a single one escape. Johann had no intention of letting any of the remaining enemies slip away. They would only become a future problem. The mercenaries Johann had hired knew this too and quickly pursued. Those who deserted were one thing, but the hired ones had to be killed right there. Please, mercy! I just want to go home. You have a wife? I'll take good care of her. Spare me. I just did what the captain told me to. Heh. I was just following the captain's orders too. Once the skirmish seemed over, Johann asked. Karamaf, did any escape? The wolf, a monster named Karamaf, had an amazing sense of smell, able to detect mercenaries who had fled from the area. Johann asked the few remaining mercenaries who were still alive. Are you hired by Countess Abner, or are you deserters? Speak the truth, and I swear by the gods I won't touch you. We deserted. Why did you desert? B. Because our pay was delayed. It was ironic that the winning side also had delayed payments, but it wasn't surprising. The enemy would only give up and pay once completely defeated. As long as they resisted, there was nothing to extract from the attacking side. I see. So you had no real connection with the Countess. I am sorry for lying. I just wanted to leave, but the captain... It's fine. I lied too. Johann swung his mace, cutting off the remaining mercenaries' lifelines. They had no reason to be spared. Quickly gather up the money. We need to get out of this area. Yes. The mercenaries, despite the sudden battle, looked cheerful. It was thanks to the rewards. The loot taken from the enemies was a substantial income for the mercenaries. Moreover, seeing Johann in action inspired trust. Beyond the danger, following a knight like him seemed a sure way to earn a substantial share. A good employer is one who pays on time and doesn't delay wages. An even better employer provides opportunities for mercenaries to earn their share.